Hello there, thanks for joining me this Tuesday. I'm Muhammad Ahmad Hamdan and these are the top stories. Government mulls new tax measures to pay off trillion ringgit debt. Decapitated body of senior citizen found in septic tank. 7-day remand for 11 cops over drug-related graft case. Hello, you're watching 7 Edition. In an effort to pay off the national debt of 1 trillion ringgit, the government needs to find other sources of funds. Prime Minister Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad today said there had been suggestions of devising new taxes, although he was aware that this could be an unpopular move. Speaking to the media after addressing a high-profile institutional investors conference themed Malaysia, a New Dawn, Tun Dr. Mahathir noted that the higher rate of economic growth will reduce the country's debt to gross domestic product ratio, thus making debts appear smaller.
Now it was suggested that we should have new taxes. I don't think that is something that is welcome by the people. But we may have to devise new taxes in order to have the money to pay our debts. Of course, the other thing that we can do is to sell our assets. What are our assets? Land is one of them.
On the new tax, although a decision has not yet been made, Tun Dr. Mahathir said it will be different from the Sales and Services Tax, SST, and will help ease the burden for the rakyat. The Langkawi MP said the sale of some of the country's assets might be necessary to pay off debts, adding that it was not just money, but the government machinery which had been tampered with. He said during the previous administration, land was sold to foreigners, a practice he said is not good for the country. The Premier also expressed confidence that Malaysia can overcome the current financial crisis as it did before in 1997 and 1998. On the conference, the Premier said he hoped that the experts and panelists would also contribute to the idea in the formation of government policy so that Malaysia can once again become the feared Asian tiger in the region. Meanwhile, the government is expected to announce additional tax measures during the 2019 budget tabling. Finance Minister Lim Guan Eng said in the medium term, the government will remain strictly in the path of fiscal consolidation as it reforms its institutions, increases revenues, optimizes expenditure, as well as rationalizes debts. The economy, he said, would remain on a steady growth path, driven by both domestic and external demand, with the government prioritizing policies to drive expansion.
Over the long term, our focus is to ensure that we will have sufficient and stable sources of revenue for the country's development. With this in mind, we have established the Tax Reform Committee to undertake a comprehensive review and reform of the overall tax system.
Lim said the Tax Reform Committee, TRC, had been given the mandate to minimize the tax gap, diversify tax revenue and make the tax system more efficient, neutral and progressive, on top of exploring ways to minimize tax leakages and evasion. He added that the same committee will review all tax incentives given out previously to ensure that those measures are still relevant in supporting high-quality economic growth. In Perak, a disabled senior citizen was found with his head decapitated at his home in Kantan New Village, Chamor, today. Following the discovery, police have arrested the victim's 52-year-old son to facilitate the investigation. The victim was identified as 74-year-old Yu Soo Kim, whose limbs were buried in the open space with the head placed on top, while the torso was stuffed inside the disused septic tank in the house compound. A 60-centimeter machete believed to have been used in the murder was also recovered at the crime scene. An initial investigation revealed that the victim was dismembered into 6 pieces, 4 limbs, head and torso. The suspect had also attempted to bury the victim's head, which was found about 12 meters from the septic tank.
Pedisi mati yang kita jumpa body ni adalah bapa kepada suspek ni. So masa soal asasat lanjut dijalankan, bapa dia bising kerana dia ni mengisap ais dalam rumah. 3 bulan yang lalu dia tak kerja, dia kerja kontrak ni. So bapa dia bising tu, kurang pada itu mungkin masa itu dia dalam keadaan haya, dia telah mengambil tindakan drastik membunuh bapa dia sendiri.
The case is being probed under Section 302 of the Penal Code for murder. The Kota Kinabalu Magistrates Court today issued a 7-day remand order on 11 policemen. One of them retired to assist the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission MACC in a graft probe related to drug activities. The suspects, aged between 26 and 55, are believed to have received bribes from drug dealers and addicts since 2014. The MACC arrested the policemen at various locations between 2 p.m. and 8 p.m. yesterday. 9 of them were held in the Kota Belud district and 1 each in Kepayan and Kota Kinabalu. The suspects range from constables to inspectors and have served in the narcotics department at the Kota Belud police headquarters. It is learned that the suspects received payment daily, weekly and monthly in their respective bank accounts involving tens of thousands of ringgit. The MACC obtained the bank statements of each suspect and is trying to trace all witnesses in relation to the case and those who bribed the policemen. The case is being investigated under Section 17, subsection A of the MACC Act 2009. An unemployed youth who allegedly put his 3-year-old nephew in a washing machine at a self-service laundrette in Bukit Sentosa, Rawang last week was charged today. The accused, Muhammad Irwan Abdul Jalil, however, pleaded not guilty. Muhammad Irwan was charged with recklessly endangering the safety of the boy by putting him into a washing machine at the Laundry Bar Laundrette in Bandar Bukit Sentosa, Hulu Selangor on October 2nd. The charge under Section 336 of the Penal Code carries a maximum 3 months in jail or a fine of up to 500 ringgit or both if convicted. The accused was allowed bail at 4,000 ringgit with one surety, but none of his family members were present in court to act as bailers. The case is set for remention on November 9th. A newborn baby boy was found abandoned early this morning, the 3rd such case this week, this time in the women's toilet of the Lanchang rest stop of the East Coast Highway in Temerloh. Police said a woman who reported the discovery found the infant in a toilet cubicle covered in feces when she heard the baby crying at about 4:30 a.m. today. Initial investigations indicate that the baby was born elsewhere before being abandoned in the toilet. The baby is believed to be in good health before being taken to Sultan Haji Ahmad Shah Hospital for observation. Zindin said the case was being investigated under the Penal Code for exposure and abandonment of a child under 12 years old. The second post-mortem process on the late CRADLE Fund CEO Nazrin Hassan is expected to take some time, depending on pathologists. Selangor CID Chief Assistant Commissioner Fazil Ahmad, however, said that the reburial of Nazrin's remains is expected to take place this Friday. It is understood that Nazrin's remains will be handed over to the same team involved in his exhumation process at the Kota Damansara Muslim Cemetery in Section 9. The victim's family is also expected to witness his reburial. On Monday, Nazrin's body was exhumed to determine the true cause of his death. His remains were then taken to University Malaya Medical Centre PPUM for a second post-mortem. Nazrin died on June 14th in a fire in his Mutiara Damansara home, initially believed to have been caused by his mobile phone exploding. He was found with 30% burns on his body. Police then reclassified his death as murder following forensics investigation that found traces of petrol in his bedroom. The Malaysian Examination Syndicate has denied rumours on social media claiming that several Form 3 assessment PT3 papers had leaked out. The rumours also said that students would have to resit those papers. In a statement today, it said that the rumours were not true and urged parents, guardians and students not to worry, as there was no need for the students to resit the papers. The so-called affected papers are English, mathematics, science and living skills. The statement further reads that schools had run the PT3 based on guidelines provided by the Examination Syndicate with monitoring by the state education departments and district education officers. The PT3 is a school-based holistic assessment of students on a continuous basis conducted from October 1st to 4th. The Election Commission EC has called on Port Dickson voters to come out early this Saturday to cast their votes in the parliamentary seat by-election. This based on the uncertain weather condition in the district over the past few days. As EC Chairman Azhar Azizan Harun said he hoped voters would take precautionary measures during the polling day to avoid any untoward incidents.
Hopefully tak mengganggu lah kan, tapi kalau hujan tu sampai satu hari tentu mungkin. Tapi kalau sentimen untuk mengundi itu tinggi, maka tak kira orang akan keluar juga, hujan atau panas. Jadi let's hope for the best. Ya, saya dari pihak SPA kita sarankan akan keluar awal, seawal mungkin untuk mengundi pada hari tersebut. Ya.
The EC chairman spoke to the media after visiting the early voting process today for the Army at the Segenting camp in Port Dickson. A total of 7,191 early voters in the Port Dickson parliamentary constituency were eligible to vote today at 3 polling stations in the by-election. As for this Saturday, polls open at 8 a.m. and will close at 5:30 p.m. Azhar said the EC expected a voter turnout of 70% this Saturday, adding that based on today's turnout, the target appears achievable. The Port Dickson constituency has 75,770 registered voters who will vote for their new parliamentarian from a choice of 7 candidates, which include Pakatan Harapan's Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim and independent candidate Tan Sri Muhammad Isa Abdul Samad. Meanwhile, early voters who utilize the Election Commission's mobile application called My SPR Semak today paved the way for a smooth voting process.
Itu amat satu perkembangan yang amat baik kerana kita menggunakan teknologi dan mengurangkan beban ataupun tanggungjawab pekerja secara fizikal pada hari pilihan raya.
According to Azhar, the move had made it possible for voters to no longer queue at the counter to check their polling channels physically. Besides checking their status, the app also provides a section where voters can check the names of candidates contesting in their respective constituency and the results of the election. Thus, he encouraged all registered voters for P132 to use the app on the PD by-election polling day on October 13th. When we return, reckless man causes the death of his father-in-law. Don't go away. Now back on local news, Communications and Multimedia Minister Gobind Singh Deo says 5G network trials will be conducted in Cyberjaya and Putrajaya by November. The 2 locations have been chosen as testbeds due to their fiber-ready networks. Beginning November, for a period of 1 year, telcos, vendors, researchers, startups and technology adopters will be invited to carry out 5G trials and to explore the practical uses and modes of implementation. Gobind said concurrently MCMC would be setting up a task force which would include the local governments of Cyberjaya and Putrajaya. He also assured that there would be a minimum 98% baseline broadband coverage in populated areas with a minimum speed of 30 megabits per second by 2023. And gigabit speed internet services would be made available at selected high-impact and strategic industrial areas by 2020, while copper networks would also be phased out by 2023. By 2020, Malaysia expects that 70% of all schools, government offices, clinics, hospitals, police stations and fire stations will be served by fibre networks. The government would need to look into the proposals by the private sector on the third national car project to determine whether it can be rolled out in 2020. The deadline for the proposal submission to the Ministry of International Trade and Industry is on October 15, 2018.
We are opening up the window for interested parties to come and submit your proposal, and we will review the proposal and see how relevant the proposal is in meeting the expectation of the government.
Earlier, Datuk Madani signed a memorandum of understanding with Proton to further optimize shared resources to be used in developing Proton's parts and component suppliers to ensure they are able to meet global standards. To date, he said 2 proposals on the third national car have been submitted, while several other proposals are being finalized prior to submission. He added, now that every ministry is supporting the third national car project, there is a role for every ministry to play in order to realize Tun Dr. Mahathir's vision. Now, when thinking of popular tourist destinations in Indonesia, familiar names such as Jakarta, Bandung and Bali come to mind. However, there is a gem of an experience awaiting those who choose to venture to West Sumatra. The richness of the Minangkabau culture, the vast sceneries and delicious food are just some of the exciting experiences that await. Azaria Tagaya recently visited Padang in West Sumatra to discover more.
Sumatra, with its vast array of tourist attractions, can prove to be an ideal holiday destination for both locals and foreigners alike. Those who prefer scenic expeditions can foray into the highlands of Bukit Tinggi, the hiding place of such gems as Ngarai Sianok, which is famously known as the Grand Canyon of Asia. And if a beach holiday consisting of banana boating and island hopping is more your thing, then Mandeh Islands is the destination for you. According to Aziz Stasia from the West Sumatra Tourism Department, Malaysians have recorded the most number of tourists to the province since 2009.
Jadi kunci sukses pengembangan pariwisata itu kan harus ada attraction, amenity, sarana, fasilitas umumnya, kemudian accessibility.
One of the ways the government is working towards making the province more accessible is through the Minangkabau Airport Rail Link, which began operations in May this year. Small local industries including songket weaving and local coffee production is being heavily promoted as means to drive the tourism sector. The skill and wisdom of the locals, combined with the uniqueness of culture, is what drives so many tourists to the province.
While the richness of Minang culture itself is something very unique for each individual to actually learn, it's been passed down from generation to generation, and what you hear today, what you can learn from it here today, is something that's very different than any other culture in the world. Also, the social system is something that is relevant to take into account as well, because it's built up of a social system that actually empowers women, and this is indeed very different from anything you will find anywhere in the world.
Minangkabau mungkin kemarin sudah ke sana, simbolnya itu adalah Istana Pagoruyung. Jadi kita punya Minangkabau itu unik. Kita punya matrilineal system. Jadi kekerabatan dari sistem ibu. Sistem ibu, jadi perempuan punya hak yang lebih besar lah kalau di Minangkabau. Jadi kita berbasis pada mother, ibu gitu kan, berbeda dengan Jawa. Itu unik. Dan itu di dunia kabarnya cuma 2.
Kita orang pun baru first time datang kat sini. Sebelum ni pernah pergi ke tempat lain tapi tak pernah pergi ke Padang, air Bukit Tinggi. Sebab kita orang dengar tempat ni penuh dengan kebudayaan. So that's why kita orang choose pilih ni, tempat ni untuk pergi bercuti.
The tourists we met also conveyed how a visit to Padang is not very different than a visit to Negeri Sembilan in Malaysia, seeing as both places share a common cultural heritage. Azaria Tagaya reporting from Padang, West Sumatra, Indonesia.
We're going for a short break. World news when we return. Stay with us. Now on to sport. It was a double strike for Malaysia as the contingent ended the gold medal drought on the third day of the Asian Para Games in Jakarta on Tuesday. Siti Nur Lasa delivered the first gold when she won the women's 400-meter T20 final in just 58 seconds, defeating Japan's Toyama Aimi, who got silver, while Indonesia's Cesar Elvin Elhudia took bronze. Meanwhile, Muhammad Nasharuddin quickly made it a glorious double by winning another gold in the men's 400-meter T20 final in just 49 seconds, defeating Indonesia's Colimau Philippus and Tine Endi Nurdin. The current state contingent occupies 11th place with 2 gold, 5 silver and 4 bronze.